Yeah, there's two major components I would say to the marketing kind of approach for companies. There's brand, which, as we talked about, is really articulating the why, articulating the kind of core value proposition of why you exist as a company, and kind of the change that you want to see in the world. And there's demand or growth. I think people have some different names for it, but that is the idea of really leveraging the storytelling to drive more folks within your audience into becoming prospects of your company, and so eventually buying your products. And they're interrelated, right? Like you can't distribute your brand story. You can't get a lot of awareness around it unless you've built really sophisticated demand kind of systems and strategy to really get a story kind of out into the world, and especially in front of the right audiences. And so that's a big component of it. And then from a demand perspective, if you're only positioning your product and only having an explicit like sales pitch out there, instead of trying to deliver value to the market through content marketing and events and all these kind of different channels, then those tend to convert at a lot less of a clip. And so you want to be able to deliver value across the entire kind of customer experience. And so demand gen and brand kind of have to work together in all of these different kind of components in order for each of them to be successful in their own right. They can't really be two different initiatives altogether. They have to be kind of tied together into one. If you're a smaller organization, or if you're early in your journey, but some of this stuff is resonating in terms of building a brand, in terms of leveraging storytelling as a way to drive affinity in the market or affinity within your customer base, I'd encourage you, first of all, to not try to boil the ocean. Instead of looking completely outwardly into the market and see what other folks are doing, I would take an authentic view of who you are already, whether it's you as the leadership of this organization, or what the company stands for. What are your values? What's the mission that really matters and really empowers you to come to work every day? And I think it's critical that all of these campaigns come from a place of authenticity. If recording a hip hop song and carpool karaoke sounds just absolutely miserable to you individually, then please know it's not a recipe for success. It happened to work for our own kind of unique zany culture that we developed at our company. And so I'd ask for you, what are the things that matter most to you, and what's your unique personality that marketers can come in and leverage to really go and help get out into the world? Because I think the role that marketing can play is just to amplify your authentic self, or the company's kind of authenticity. You can't go and talk to every family member or every participant in your programs or every athlete. You can't do that. So at scale, at least. And so marketing can help kind of provide a megaphone for you and kind of do that on your behalf. So that's the first thing I would say is really, if you don't have that in place already, the sort of self-reflection of who are we and what we stand for, what we believe, like I would definitely take some time to memorialize that. Second thing I'd say then is don't look to B2B software people like me, honestly, because the B2B world is lagging. I'm taking my signals from Disney, from Airbnb, from some of these companies that really appreciate the consumer marketing world, Red Bull even. There's a lot of interesting things, interesting stuff coming really out of the sports world, frankly, too. I think, I'll admit I'm a Laker fan. Seeing what LeBron's doing around content and stuff is really interesting. So I think finding ways to be inspired by what some of the leading folks are doing around content, what they're doing around just engaging with their audiences and brands as brands, I think is the best place to look to draw inspiration, because it's really tough to like copy paste other people's strategies, but it's really, I think, compelling to start from where you all are coming from, but then use the channels that you see other people using. So use video, use podcasting, use TV, find some of these kind of different ways that people are, different brands are using to kind of break through the noise, and leverage those to amplify your story. That's extremely important to take the time to figure out, your purpose and your values and the mission that you're on, and before you really start investing in a lot of the marketing tactics that we're talking about here. And the reason is companies or customers, consumers, folks out in the market, they want to follow a brand that's going to inspire them, that's going to influence them, that again, they see themselves kind of reflected in the values of that organization. So if you don't know kind of, what you stand for necessarily kind of going into that process, it's going to be really hard to tell a story around that. That's going to start a movement. Really, it's going to catalyze people to follow you and be a part of what you're building. So that's why I think from a sequencing perspective, it's incredibly important to do it first. But if you're, look, if you're watching this and you're well on your journey, I want to say it's not too late either. I think you have some historical kind of experience here to bring into the exercise to say, like, let me look back on what we've been building and talk about kind of or really write down the stuff that has really inspired us to keep going. So you can do that, by the way, through just on unstructured brainstorming and writing and going to a whiteboard with the team. I'd say bring the folks that are closest to the heart of the organization together, validate it out with your customers, with folks that are in maybe that have been subscribing for years now as part of your programs. Like, run it by them, get their take, so it's not just kind of coming from one vantage point. And then the other way you could do it too is to bring in a facilitator. There are experts out there that their job is to basically help lead leadership teams through this type of stuff. And so there are some more resources you can pursue, whether it's coaching, facilitation, some different kind of resourcing to help you all kind of extract the thing that you haven't been able to put into words and kind of bring it to life. But I would encourage you to do it, especially before really ramping a lot of your sales and marketing effort. I imagine for many of you, you might be coming from some smaller organizations in which some of the stuff sounds pretty daunting. Thinking about, all right, do I need to go hire a marketer to go help me figure this stuff out? We're wearing many hats. How do we really leverage the folks that we have? I think there are ways to sort of start small with this stuff. And so I want to, I don't think you need to boil the ocean necessarily to get started. For example, the authentic kind of reflection on the company values is one that's free, and it's going to cost you your time and your leadership time to kind of come together to do it. So by that logic, it becomes more priority setting than, resources. Next is, okay, now that we have this written down, how do we start building some of this stuff? But again, we don't have a lot of time or in-house expertise. What I'd argue is, if you're able to articulate it well enough as the founder or leadership team of the company, just get something down on paper. It doesn't have to be like incredibly articulate. What you could do is hire a marketer on contract, or a copywriter, or even someone like that's a student intern that's a creative writing major, someone who can take the framework of what you've created and turn it into a piece of content. And when I talk about content, I think that that's a can of worms in and of itself. But the core idea is, can you put together one manifesto, one ebook, one piece of literature that kind of tells the story of your brand? And I would challenge you to say, are there 12 principles you can come up with that help sort of govern, like there are 12 components of your brand or how your company kind of sees the world. And the reason I choose 12 is, what you can potentially do is to turn each one of those as chapters of that book that your creative writing intern or whoever your copywriting consultant is going to go and do, which, by the way, very cheap, right, type of resource. That can also then turn into a month of content for an entire year's of your marketing strategy. So you could drop one blog post every month based on a chapter of that book. If you have any sort of webinar technology, or if you're using Zoom or any of these other tools, you could do a session that talks about each of these. And again, in the early days, I wouldn't overcorrect on production value and everything. I would just have an authentic conversation with those that are on your email list or whatever on that very topic. And so now you're starting small and you don't have a marketer on board, but you have like little programs that you can run every month that are tying to this other bigger brand story. And then the leave behind is that ebook or that digital asset that was created. So it's sort of I share that as one example, but I think my answer would be there are ways to hack this in the early days that aren't incredibly cost prohibitive, that can help you at least start telling your story in the world. And as you start seeing some of that success, then you might choose, hey, we're going to bring on someone to go run it. And I don't think you need a CMO to go do it even right away, but someone that can just manage both the curation of this content over time and execute the programs. And so someone's full-time job is to continue to tell this story on your behalf to your audience, to your customers, and to potential customers.